Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Laura Prada from the Telesur Studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. And we begin in Venezuela, where Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza has met with representatives of the 120 members of the non-aligned movement countries. The meeting was aimed at explaining to country members the real situation in Venezuela. Arreaza denounced how Venezuelan people is suffering from the constant attacks promoted by the United States against the country. He also called on the movement to defend the United Nations Charter.
For the first time in Latin America history, a coup is openly led by the US government and its allies. In the past, they used to be meticulous, so it wasn't that obvious. And decades later, the documents show the US is always been behind coups in our continent.
Jorge Arreaza also demanded that Washington lifts the financial blockade against his country.
Let's be coherent, unblock Venezuela and lift the sanctions, respect the Charter of the United Nations, because the US government has no legal authority to impose unilateral measures outside the framework of international law. In many cases, production has ceased for not having access to raw materials, for not being able to put to work our factories. That must add billions of dollars. There is not a humanitarian crisis in Venezuela, but an economy blocked and besieged. And despite these circumstances, we have managed to recover the consumption levels in Venezuela of 1 million tons per month in food.
Arreaza also insisted that the Venezuelan government is committed to dialogue and to solve political differences with the opposition.
President Maduro once again insists on sitting down and maintaining a dialogue wherever the opposition wants. We have to do it because we are all Venezuelans and we want a sovereign country. I hope that there is a process of independence from the opposition, especially from these extremists who are receiving orders and holding meetings with Marco Rubio, Bolton, Pompeo, Mike Pence, and even Trump at the White House.
And Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said that Moscow United Nations Security Council resolution on Venezuela is aimed at political settlement. At the same time, he said that the United States has attempted to push its own resolutions, which hides its aggressive interventionist plans. According to the minister, the U.S. Department of State also asked to organize a phone call with Mike Pompeo. He added that the Russian government will soon meet with the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs, Federica Mogherini, to seek support for dialogue in Venezuela.
We don't have any contact with the United States related to Venezuela, besides to debate in the UN Security Council, where they try to impose a resolution that hides their interventionist plans.
And our correspondent Hansel Oro has more details for us regarding this topic.
During a cell phone conversation, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and U.S. Secretary Mike Pompeo, Lavrov warned the United States against any interference act with Venezuela, referring also to the use of military force that has United States to press to the Bolivarian government. Lavrov also referred to the U.S. resolution. This proposal presented by the United Nations Security Council. Lavrov explained that this draft is nothing more than trying to hide these provocations for military interventions, using humanitarian aids as an idea to destabilize the Venezuelan society. On the other hand, Lavrov explained that soon competitiveness talks with the representative of the European Union for Foreign Policy, Federica Mogherini, contribute to the situation in Venezuela. Several countries of the European Union support this approach and recognizes the deputy opponent Juan Guaidó as an interim president of Venezuela. Lavrov reiterates the proposal, the Russian and Chinese idea to be able to seek an international format to facilitate the talks between the government and the opposition. On the other hand, Lavrov has recognized the intentions of the legitimate President Nicolas Maduro to approach to maintain a dialogue with the oppositions who have not agreed to this exchange.
And the Permanent Commission of the Uruguayan Parliament has met with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Rodolfo Nim Noboa, to discuss about Venezuela. Nim Noboa reaffirms the Uruguayan government will not recognize Juan Guaidó. The foreign minister says that the cabinet is not willing to recognize a president who was not elected by the people. And from Uruguay, our correspondent Mateo Grille expands this information.
The Chancellor of the Republic, Rodolfo Di Noboa, concurred with all his collaborators to a session of the Permanent Commission of the Uruguayan Legislative Power to the flat mayor of the Chancellery of the party, Arbor, Colorado. For Pedro Borda, to know the Uruguayan stance with the respect of Venezuela and why it continues to recognize the constitutional government of Venezuela chaired by Nicolas Maduro. Their Chancellor, Rodolfo Di Noboa, said that they will continue to recognize Nicolas Maduro after he emerged from a constitutional election and also denied the possibility of meeting Juan Guaidó. He also pointed out that a self-proclaimed government could be a very dangerous thing for Latin America.
Like this, we've come to the first break here from the South. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Telesur English and my personal account at Laura P. Telesur. Stay with us. We are back. The trial to Catalan pro-independence leaders accused of rebellion, sedition and embezzlement of public funds started on Tuesday. Our correspondent Edu Marin has the details for us.
The historical trial to the pro-independence lawyers of Catalonia accused of rebellion, sedition and embezzlement of public funds opened on Tuesday. The indictment of the defense lawyers to the Supreme Court of Portugal has been highlighted, as they has dubbed the fairness to this case, and also one of the lawyers has said that the magistrates must be judges and not defenders but saviors. 9 out of the 12 accused are in prevent detention. They are facing from 25 to 75 years of convictions. This was just the first session. The trial could be extended to more than 2.5 months. This historic trial has spread controversy at the national and international level.
Thank you, Edu. And the Russian government said that the United States is harming a potential peaceful solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. During a meeting in Moscow with representatives of several Palestinian organizations, including Hamas and Fatah, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov denounced that the U.S. approach to the conflict undermines international mechanisms for peace. He also called to the Palestinian people to strengthen unity.
Our U.S. colleagues imposed new solutions to the settlement problem. They have been promising for more than 2 years the agreement of the century, but the current information gives us the reason to believe that the future agreements of the century will ruin everything that has been done so far.
And United States military campaign and its allies against Syria continue. This week, several attacks have been targeted specifically at unarmed civilians. More details from Damascus with Hisham Wanus.
The alleged U.S. International Coalition for the alleged fight against Daesh has committed a new massacre in Syria's civilian population on Tuesday, 12 February. In the province of Deir Zor, the coalition's warplanes bombed the town of Argus, in which different camps of civilians were held. More than 70 people were victims of those attacks. They were mostly women and children. It should be noted that this aggression occurs days after a previous attack near the town of Argabus, which also caused the death of more than 20 civilians. Washington claims that these international coalition aircraft support the military operations that have patched military operations Kurdish against Daesh. The Syrian Chancellery has sent a letter to the United States government asking to investigate and penalize these crimes. The UN Secretary Council has called for the dissolution of this illegal group, despite the fact that the removal of illegal invading forces have been requested. The answer has been the insertion of more and more troops.
Thank you, Hicham. And now we come to a second break, but make sure you visit our website, telesurenglish.net, where you can find more stories, read opinion articles, and of course, find Telesur's special interviews.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo corro.
To keep myself healthy, I study.
Για να διατηρηθώ υγιής, τρέφομαι σωστά.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo bailo.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo purifico mi espíritu a través del cuerpo. ¿Y tú?
Get your body. Tuesdays, only on Telesur. An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives, Friday, only on Telesur.
And we are back. 20 Syrian hostages have been freed from the same number of militants in the village of Deir Kak in Aleppo Governorate. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, representative of the Russian, Turkish and Iranian Ministries of Defense, as well as International Red Cross and Red Crescent, monitored the exchange. As new government in the Democratic Republic of Congo takes office for the first time since presidential elections, farmers hope that their grievances can be finally resolved. Our correspondent in Kinshasa, Oscar Epelde, brings us more about the plight of these communities.
Elders from Baoba still remember what the whites and the government promised back in the 60s in exchange for their lands. They wanted to build the Inga hydroelectric dam. They were promised homes, a school and a hospital that would have improved their quality of life, as well as access to electricity and tractors. But these proved to be empty promises. To this day, they don't even have a light bulb.
People are suffering. First of all, we need them to deliver everything they promised. We gave up our lands because of what they promised, so they owe us. If they were good people, they would pay us back. Our ancestors are gone, but we are still suffering from their abuse.
Those who work for foreign construction companies didn't receive any benefits either, like Mwanda Mwaka, who tells us there's been no positive change in her village.
Finding food is hard, finding water and medicine as well. We have not seen any improvements in all these years.
When they came to build the second channel, they didn't even respect Congolese workers. They never had them sign a work contract.
They paid us 150,000 Congolese francs a month.
You benefit from my labor, but ignore I have a whole family to feed. We are not against anyone in particular. We just want our dignity back. Don't use me. Make me sign a contract.
They continue to demand that the government lives up to its responsibilities.
And thousands have rallied outside the White House in the United States to demand that the temporary protection status of hundreds of thousands of migrants not to be revoked. Protesters later continued to march through Washington, D.C. They have also demanded that migrants' TPS status be made permanent. Hundreds of thousands of migrants live under the temporary protection status, which allows them to live and work in the United States for a certain period of time.
We need to make sure that we as a nation honor our promises. And that is what this is all about. We, from Nepal to Honduras, we have made a promise to say that the United States will be a safe haven. We will be that lantern on the shore.
And for more details, our correspondent in Washington, Alina Duarte, has for us.
We are in front of the White House, where hundreds of people have gathered to demand that the U.S. government does not suspend temporary protection status that protects more than 300,000 migrants, mostly from El Salvador, Haiti, and Honduras. On Tuesday, people will march to several institutions, including Congress, to demand the government guarantees temporary protection status, which is at risk. They also demand that migrants who have been living here for more than 2 decades be given citizenship.
And Mexican drug trafficker Joaquin El Chapo Guzman has been found guilty and faces life imprisonment. A U.S. court found him guilty of all 10 charges related to drug trafficking. He was accused of manufacturing and distributing heroin and marijuana and ordering killings. He was arrested in 2016 after escaping a Mexican prison and was later extradited to the United States for his trial in 2017.
Minutes ago, a federal jury here in the Eastern District convicted Joaquin El Chapo Guzman Loera on all counts of the federal indictment. In sum, the jury found that Guzman led the Sinaloa cartel, one of the largest and most dangerous drug cartels in the world, and that he's responsible for violence, including murders, and the smuggling of massive amounts of narcotics into the United States over a period of decades.
And now to other topics. Telesur released this Tuesday a song as part of the collaborative international campaign Tambores de la Paz para Venezuela, Drums of Peace for Venezuela. The video is a message of peace and solidarity with the Venezuelan people before the foreign siege their face. Here, we tell you more about it.
Raúl Torres, a Cuban singer and composer, considered one of the most outstanding interpreters of the Cuban New Trova. The artist is a composer of themes as Cándida Nieves, Se Fue, Regrésamelo Todo, El Regreso del Amigo, The Return of the Friend, dedicated to the commander Hugo Chávez, among others. On this occasion, Torres expressed his support and respect for Venezuela. That's why he wrote Tambores de la Paz, Drums of Peace, that then gives a breath of hope before the constant aggression of the United States and the world trees. We must learn to live with those that don't understand us, to have a future where we can breathe. So express the lyrics of the song, where Torres had the collaboration of other musicians. The song is part of the campaign nominated Tambores de la Paz para Venezuela, Drum of Peace for Venezuela. This initiative seeks to participation of the peoples as an example of integration and solidarity with the Bolivarian nations.
And like this, we've come to the end of this brief, but before, we want to leave you with Drums of Peace. Until next time.
Yo. Los tambores de la paz.
Suenen los ángeles de la tierra, los tambores de la paz. Sí. Quemen los tambores de la guerra para que no suenen más, para que no suenen.
Yo, si por el camino corto se ha de saber cómo acaba, se cambian caricias por torrida lava. Soñaba que un día despertaríamos de este letargo y nos abrazaríamos. Toda la fe que regresa, los boomerang con afán de llevarse otra presa. Yeah.
El viento del norte no está escogiendo quién menos, quién más. Lo mismo dispara la luz, lo mismo a la oscuridad. Para eso mi hermano estás tú, por eso tu hermano estoy yo. Los dos a cargar esa cruz, que al fin nuestra sangre es igual. Basta ya. Oh.
Suenen los ángeles de la tierra, los tambores de la paz. Quemen los tambores de la guerra para que no suenen más, para que no suenen.
Alúmbrame cielo, haz que me valga la pena el desvelo. Suelo, regálame miles de brotes, que las ideas nunca se derroten. Cúbreme azul, sin tanta metralla, entre razón, fuera batalla.
Silencio es todo lo que queda luego de una lluvia de fuego y maldad. La guerra borra las canciones de los labios que le cantan a la paz. Sentir el vuelo de vivir sin armas, como descubrir el paraíso celestial. Aquí en la tierra sin morir, aprendamos a convivir con quien no nos entienda igual, para tener un porvenir donde podamos respirar.
Basta ya. Suenen los ángeles de la tierra, los tambores de la paz. Quemen los tambores de la guerra para que no suenen más, para que no suenen.
Suenen los tambores en mi tierra, los tambores de la paz.
Y es que no paro de pensar, quieren que nos matemos ya. No le importamos tú ni yo, solo el petróleo nada más. Y nuestras calles no querrán enrojecerse nunca más. La vida se puede llevar con diferencias y bondad, nunca más.
Sangre por